Come and dream with me.
Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch, the Explosion Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and online content and help you answer the question, did Warner Brothers really just do Johnny Depp a favour by getting him out of the next Fantastic Beasts movie? I think so.
Yes. They did us all a favour.
Yeah. I mean, rumour is he's getting paid, so, I mean...
Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Joining me this episode, Dylan Blight.
I don't think anyone's going to watch that movie nonetheless. You know what I mean? Like, and the funny thing is, like, with Fantastic Beasts, is in another world, the Johnny Depp thing, like, if you could take JK out of the picture, right?
Yep.
So you look, there's three levels to this in my mind, right? So let's pretend JK's not an issue, Johnny Depp's not an issue. The last movie still sucked. So yes. my excitement would still be whatever. So then you can put Johnny Depp back into the picture. Let's pretend JK doesn't exist at the moment. They're like, oh, we're taking Johnny Depp out. And I'd be like, well, that's probably better because he's a bit problematic at the moment. But also, the last movie still sucked, so I don't really care. And then if you put JK back into the picture, you're like, between JK, Johnny Depp, and the last movie sucking, who cares about this movie anymore? You know what I mean?
I mean, only the most diehard of diehard fans, I think.
Yeah.
And even then, it's a bit of a struggle, I think. Although, rumour is they've talked about Mads Mikkelsen coming into play. Grindelwald.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mads, but...
The funny thing is they're filming right now. I just don't understand. What are they doing?
CGI.
How are they doing it? I don't know.
So in a world where everything's magic and you've already had a character's face change in the first film, you can literally just rewrite and do whatever you want, basically.
Yeah. You know, he's had some sort of accident and he suddenly face changes forever.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate. All right. We've got a show for you this week. Which is interesting, seeing as we've had a full 2 weeks of absolutely nothing else taking up our priorities here at the Explosion Network. Just content, just videos, movies, TV, all the time. Nothing else.
Yeah. Let's put this. Let's get that on the table. If you listen to this, you somehow don't know. Obviously, 2 new video game consoles came out. I can say I'm sorry. I did put precedent towards playing a lot of video games, and I have watched fuck all, but that's fine.
It's fine.
Ash has got you covered, I assume.
I do. Also, if you haven't noticed, Nick's not here. He's unfortunately ill, and I was kind of relying on him, seeing as he had new consoles to carry the load a little bit. But we move on. We'll be talking about the little bit that's in our watch history. We're talking about a bit of news, and we'll talk about the movie that we ended up watching, Blue Valentine. I guess I'll kick things off with maybe the most important release of the last 2 weeks. The Lego Star Wars Holiday Special. Out on Disney Plus right now. In my opinion, this is the canon ending to the Skywalker saga. Take it or leave it. It just is just a joyful experience. Obviously set after Rise of Skywalker, in which everybody is celebrating Life Day, which is the Star Wars equivalent of Christmas. Rey is trying to teach Finn how to be a Jedi. So, congrats. But, she's not doing a very good job. She's feeling bad about it. She goes on sort of some Jedi quest in which she encounters some sort of object that lets her travel into the past to encounter. So she floats back. She goes back into the past and pops up in different iconic Star Wars moments, and then, hilarity ensues when the Sith encounter her. And it's only 44
like an
minutes.
Hour too, right? Okay, Jesus, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty short. I will say Kelly Marie Chan has more lines in this than she did in Rise of Skywalker, so that's a plus.
That's a plus, but I think also...
And I think she's the only returning character. Obviously.
Who does Rey's voice, does it say? Because I remember when the trailer dropped, I was trying to find out, and I couldn't actually find out. So
I did have...
Because the press release that came through was like, returning voices like Kelly Marie Tran and Anthony Daniels and someone else, I think, maybe. But other than that, I was like, well, who the hell's voicing Rey and Finn and Poe? I'm surprised Poe didn't... Poe, fucking...
Ray is done by Helen Sadler, who, I mean, her headshot kind of looks like Daisy Ridley.
Has she done like Star Wars voices before at all or anything?
She was in Star Wars Squadrons. She was in Star Wars The Old Republic.
Okay.
She does Jyn Erso in Star Wars Forces of Destiny.
She plays Jyn.
She has played Rey
Destiny,
in the Lego Star Wars The Resistance Rises miniseries.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, she's done a fair bit of different like voiceover work and a lot of Star Wars, a fair few Star Wars related things. So, yeah, she sounds fine. She sounds like Rey, so got that going for it. But yeah, it's just a fun time. It's like, it's obviously got a more playful tone than the movies, and you know, it just feels like a good capper to everything and a nice ending, in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I believe you're going on to Radio Watson probably the next week or so, talk about it with Buddy.
Yes.
So,
so because it only dropped last night as
Yes.
of recording, and I didn't rush to watch it first thing this morning because I'm playing a very hard game and I'm saving it for when I get frustrated and then I can watch it afterwards.
yeah. So check that out. Dylan, let's talk about the one review you put up on the site the last couple of movie review. Talk about Sweet Taste of Souls.
Oh, there's something else I watched. I just remembered as you said that.
There's two things you watched.
Okay. I couldn't remember if I tracked it. Sweet Taste and Souls. So yeah, this is a very indie horror film. The acting is kind of all over the place. It's like a B movie level of acting that you'd expect. The premise is kind of cool. It's about this woman who owns it's a bakery, and these like kids stop in. These two girls, two guys, like on a road trip or whatever. Of course, they're coupled off, and they stop in, and this woman takes somehow. They never really explain, but she has the ability to somehow take pictures of people, and then you get trapped within her photos, and she has all these people up on her wall. Which, when you first go into the shop, of course, you're like, oh, those weird photos, but then you discover that they're actually people, and then the four people get captured, and then they have to figure out how to escape, and then other people come in looking for the kids, etc., etc., etc. My biggest hang up with the film, because I can enjoy a B movie horror. I feel like there's definitely audience for that stuff. That's why these things still get made. But my problem was just the core group of characters. The two guys especially were just not very likable. Like the first 10-15 minutes of the movie, they're just arguing and bickering and like, let's go outside and fight, dude, and like all this like very frat bro type attitude. And when you have a horror movie, you're kind of supposed to want to root for the people to survive, whereas I'm just like, well, I hope that dude dies and I hope he dies soon, and I just don't really particularly care. But yeah, it was a little bit of fun. I can't remember what I gave it, like a 4 or 5 or
something
4,
like that.
So, yeah.
It's really not that important. We might as well talk about the other thing you watched, Leap of Faith, William Friedkin on The Exorcist.
Yeah, so this was I should have a review up for this sometime soon as well. This is a Shudder documentary. It's very good, especially if you're a fan of The Exorcist, the original film. The setting for this documentary is it's basically one long interview with William Friedkin, who's the director of The Exorcist, of course. And instead of having I kind of like it, how it's just one interview with just the director. And of course, it's intertwined with footage of both the film and behind the scenes of the film, or other films that he brings up as influence and these sorts of things. But I think if you're a fan of cinema, even if you're not a big fan of horror, but you're just a fan of film, because The Exorcist is considered by a lot of people like a classic film, the way he talks about creating that film and like staging the horror, the way he talks about creating certain sounds for the movie, other things he talks about, like how he kind of had to fight against the studio for certain sort of casting in the film. Like there's a couple times where the studio cast some bigger, well-known name at the time for the lead, or not the lead, but the second priest in the film. And he was like, no, I don't want him. I want this other guy. And then he basically spat at the studio, and the studio had to, because they'd already contracted the other guy, they actually had to pay the other actor like the full wages, so then they could hire the other guy that the director wanted. And he brings up a lot of like very like early like 1930s, 1920s films as inspiration for the film, especially the way he staged and shot certain things. And he's a interesting director if you know anything about him. Like his other most famous film, I think, is obviously The French Connection, and that's kind of famous for its run and gun kind of shooting style. They just kind of shot things without permission, and he did that on purpose because he wanted the film to have this sort of gritty feel. And you definitely see a lot of that in The Exorcist as well. And he's the way he talks about directing people, where he's like, I don't want to, like, he wants to capture magic in the bottle as if it's live. Like he talks about directing as if it's a documentary, not as if it's a staging of actors. Like he wants to get real reactions and real moments and these sorts of things. So it was definitely quite an interesting watch.
Cool. So I watched The Way Back, the Ben Affleck film directed by Gavin O'Connor. So this one came out, what was it? March this year, before all the cinemas closed. It's now out on Netflix. Follows a alcoholic construction worker who's given an opportunity to coach his old high school basketball team, and try and redeem himself to a certain extent. I really enjoyed it. I think Ben Affleck has been getting a fair bit of praise for this. I think he's very good. I like the slow dole out of information about his past and everything, and some of it is very on the nose. Like he straight up tells one of his students exactly why his history is the way it is and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a nice, enjoyable experience. Obviously, there are darker elements because obviously he's dealing with alcoholism and there's a certain reason he's in the current position he's in with his family and that. But I really liked it. I wish there was more of the basketball element. I really enjoyed the dynamic he had with the kids and more of the teaching the basketball. And I think who's the main kid is called Brandon Durrett, played by Brandon Wilson. He's very good. But yeah, he's surrounded by a solid cast, including Al Madrigal is like his assistant coach, and Jadina Gavinkar plays his ex-wife. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So
is it just another like sort of run-of-the-mill feel-good sports coach story, does it?
No, it does a bit more. It's a bit. There's more shades of grey than there are. You know what I mean? Because
there's a lot. I feel like there's a lot of those coach sports team movies. You know what I mean? Like it's a genre.
Yeah, but I think this one's a bit better than the run-of-the-mill ones. And Gavin O'Connor's got a pretty solid record with these kind of sports films. With what he's done, he did Miracle, the ice hockey film, and Warrior, which is a great MMA film. If you haven't seen that, check that out. Yeah, so this was really enjoyable. Just want to shout out The Circus, obviously the series that airs in Showtime in America, but is on Stan here in Australia, that follows the American political system since
called
the start.
Circus.
Called The Circus because it's a circus. Pretty much following the entire election campaign. Came to a brilliant finale. Fortunately, it aired like the day after Biden was announced the winner by the media in America. So the last shot of the season is Joe Biden going up to give that speech. But
is that the season finale? They're not going to continue.
No, that was the scheduled season finale. That's where they thought it was going to end. Yeah. So I'm bitterly disappointed there wasn't another episode this week, because I need help keeping up with all the craziness happening over there. They do have some great shots of the Four Seasons landscaping. They include that bit because obviously that fit in. I mean, they touch on it, but definitely looking forward to. Hopefully, it comes back next season. I imagine it would, because of all the craziness and that's the American political system. That surely they'd come back for another season. even though
I know,
it's the
it
end.
was always-
It's hopefully the end of the Trump era. So
Yeah, well, because the show was originally supposed to be one season, just covering the original Trump.
it was just meant to be that election because
Yeah, it was just
obviously it
meant
was
to
a
be that
brand
election,
new
yeah.
president.
Yeah, it was meant to be the 2016 election lead up, and then it was supposed to end. And then because obviously the circus continued, the show did.
Yeah, so yeah, very keen for more of that. Definitely worth rewatching, I think. If you want to figure out why America is the way it is, or how we got to this point. I feel like they're reasonably unbiased, even though I would say they're slightly nowhere near as extreme as anybody in the Republican Party at the moment. Then I also checked out Inside Pixar, which is a new short documentary series on Disney Plus that has short stories with different people working at Pixar. At the moment, there's only like 5 episodes at the moment, but they're all with like interesting people within the company. I think the first episode is about the writer who was working on Soul and what he brought as a black man to that story and the changes that he made to that, and kind of talking about his experience of writing that. The last episode follows Dan Scanlon, who was the director of Onward, and kind of explains his inspiration for that story and that kind of thing. But there's also one with the script supervisor at Pixar who innovated their push to have more gender equality in their films, including introducing software that tells them in the script the differentiation of the characters in the actual script, and how many lines each person of gender has and in the scripts and that kind of thing. Also found out they give out Russell Awards to people in the company, like little Russells from
Like
the movie Up.
Jack? Oh, right. Okay, yeah, okay. I was like, what?
And I want
Jack
one.
Russells?
No, the little Russells holding a little flag. They look adorable, and I want one. Like, I don't know how Pixar, I can pull some strings, but I could have one of those. That'd be great. I think the other one is who is it? One of the artistic. She does like the clothing and that kind of thing within the films, and then another one was about one of the Spark Shorts directors, who did the short film Out, which is the first openly gay Pixar project, and obviously he himself being openly gay and him talking about his experience getting into that. They're in like 15 minutes each, so I feel like it would have been nice to have a little bit more, but it's definitely in the vein of that Dane Disney project they started.
Yeah, One Day at
back
Disney
in the
or
One Day
whatever.
at Disney or whatever. Just snippets. I believe there's going to be 4 sets of 5 films, so there'll be 20 altogether. They're all like into different categories. So the category for this first batch is called Inspired. So all inspirational bits. So I'm looking forward to watching the other ones. Yeah.
That One Day at Disney thing was quite confusing, I feel, for people who didn't really know, because there was the proper documentary called One Day at Disney, but then all those shorts, which were only like 5 minutes or less, were also under like One Day at Disney. So, you know what I mean? Like if you're scrolling through Disney Plus.
And I remember a few of the shorts were just pulled directly from that longer documentary.
Yeah, the first couple were, and then they started going outside of it, I think, yeah.
All right, that's time to move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. Just got a couple of things. I watched Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Story, because we're getting to that time of year where we're going to be inundated with Christmas films.
Is it as good as I hope it is?
So it's directed by David E. Talbot, starring Forrest Whitaker, Keegan-Michael Key, Hugh Bonneville, and Madeline Mills, with Ricky Barton providing a voice, following a inventive toy maker called Jeronicus Jangle, whose latest invention and his life's work gets stolen by his apprentice Gustafson.
It's a little robot.
It's a sentient matador doll, is the thing that he steals. And the sentient matador doll, played by Ricky Martin, is pretty much convincing him to steal him. Flash forward 30-something years, he's an old man, a bitter old man to a certain extent, who likes to be by himself and that kind of thing. And along comes his granddaughter who's a great inventor herself, and like try to get him to believe in stuff again. You know, it's an enjoyable film. I think I was just expecting more. It's very small. I think, you know.
It looks big budget, like special effects wise in the trailer. Though.
There are some big budget moments, but there's very few sets and locations. There are some reasonably big. There's some good musical numbers. Music done by John Legend and Philip Lawrence. No, who?
Because it's proper songs, right?
It's John
like
Lawrence.
A musical.
Yeah, it's pretty much a musical. John Legend and Philip Lawrence did a lot of the music. There's like 11 songs on the soundtrack. If you want to go listen to it, I assume it's on Spotify. A few of those songs are really good. Especially the young girl, Madeline Mills. She's really good in this. Really impressive. I'm looking forward to see where she goes from here. But Forrest Whitaker is really good as like the bitter old man who learns to. I feel like there's just not much Christmas in it. This is, you know, for a Christmas story. It's not really a Christmas story. It's just a story that takes place at Christmas. But it's still an enjoyable film.
By it not being a Christmas movie, do you mean like your typical Santa Claus Christmas story, or like what's the?
Yeah, that. Or just Christmas themes at all. It's like the theme of the movie is definitely about believing in stuff, and it just so happens they're toy makers, so that fits in the theme of Christmas. I mean, yeah, like I said, it's quite an enjoyable film, but I was expecting more, and I feel like it's not like a big production that, I mean, it could have been. But, you know, it is a Netflix film from a director who hasn't done a project in a few years. So I'm sure they didn't like blow the bank on this one.
On this soundtrack, it says Forrest Whitaker sings several of the songs.
He does.
Michael Key also sings.
He does. He's got a really good song because he's a full-on showman-esque guy who's
you always
been riding on the coattails of.
You know what I mean? I feel like they would just like, because half the time if they're singing and it's a big name actor, it's just someone else. Like they're just lip syncing. So
not always.
Not always, but I'm saying I'm surprised to hear that Forrest Whitaker performed the fucking song. There you go. Interesting. Anyway, it is on Spotify, obviously, because I just quickly looked that
up. Yeah. Then I also watched the series Dash and Lily, created by Joe Trakt, but based on the young adult series Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, written by David Levithan and Rachel Conn. People might know them for their other works, including Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and Naomi and Ellie's No Kiss List, which have both been turned into films. So this one follows Dash and Lily. Dash, like a loner-esque character. They're both 17, which I will say off the top, they don't look 17, they don't act 17. It's a weird disconnect for me. That was one major.
What does a 17-year-old act like these days? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good
point. I don't know. Like, I'm like 20 years older than 17. You're like 38 years older than 17. Like, we're not really in the know. You know what I'm saying?
Know, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Obviously they didn't look 17 is the other thing, but so Lily leaves a notebook inside a bookstore, daring someone to solve her riddles and
here we go.
Prove himself worthy. And the pair of them start to go leave messages for each other with this notebook, daring each other to do different things and like putting their feelings into this notebook in the lead up to Christmas.
It's a Christmas thing.
It is a Christmas thing. It's definitely set. It's set. I know, starts like a week or two before Christmas. I think the last 3 episodes are called Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve. So
skip a week.
Maybe. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think it's one of the better things I might have watched this year. It's definitely that really enjoyable young adult kind of story. I really enjoy the 2 leads, Midori Midori Francis and Austin Abrams. They have great chemistry, and they're both quite charming in their own ways. It's only 8 episodes. They're about 20-something minutes each. So really, it's like the length of maybe 2 Christmas movies. So, not that long. And I'd like smash it out in like one sitting when I could have been playing my PlayStation 5.
Are these 30 minutes or?
No, like 20-something minutes.
Okay.
Each. So yeah, very, very bingeable. And it based on the Netflix trending tab, it looks like a lot of people are binging it. So check that one out. All right, that's everything in our watch history.
You know what? I have a question since you said PS5.
Yes.
How is the PlayStation 5 treating the media app section? Because obviously you're the only person I know who actually uses their console as their main media hub.
Yeah, so it's fine. It's almost exactly the same. I mean, things load a little bit quicker.
But between the remote and everything loading,
the remote
quicker,
is really nice. Obviously, switching between things and not having to pick up my DualSense every time, just having my remote sitting next to me, so I can quickly. Once I'm done with something, I can quickly switch over to Netflix. There have been some issues, especially this launch week, where I don't know. I'm sure you've had this with some games as well. It will just say you can't open app or game until you close whatever you're doing. No. That's well, weird. You probably close things before you open something else up first.
I think so.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be an issue for you. But yeah, that's been one thing. But yeah, everything works fine. One thing I've seen big difference was the Crunchyroll app, which has got a different UI set up to the PS4 version, which looks much slicker and nicer. So yes, much better.
Did you sign into the Apples on it? Because that's worth mentioning.
I did sign into the Apple. I did sign into the Apple TV app on the PlayStation 5. Watched Ted Lasso, episode of Ted Lasso on it. Looks great on the big TV. I will say I did finish watching the Tiny Worlds documentary series. Yeah. Quite enjoyable. I'm kind of sure they've CGI'd this a little bit. They can't be
it's supposed
completely.
To be a documentary.
I can't honestly believe that it was all completely captured.
It's supposed to be real.
Especially this last episode, which is set in someone's backyard. And they've got the gardener guy come up and spray stuff and cut leaves at certain points. It's like, come on. It's completely, very much acted. And you got this tiny little spider inside the Legos while the little kid's playing around. That's unsafe. What if that spider had a bit in that kid?
Maybe they recorded the spider and then, like, they've melded 2 elements.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, like, the spider CGI or something.
I don't know. There is one segment where a peregrine falcon comes flying down and kills the starling in the backyard through backyard stuff, like through trees and shit. That I'm like, there's no way you caught that on camera.
Weirder things have happened.
Unless you trained a falcon to come at the camera.
No,
I don't know.
Back when I got my GoPro, I used to just set, like, we have a little bird nesting set up in trees. And I used to just set my GoPro out there and just record it for hours just to see if I could capture any crazy shit happening. I was obsessed for like a month just because I could leave it there. And because the GoPro is obviously small and it's got that nice wide angle lens.
Yeah.
So you could just stick it in the back of the like bird thing. I was obsessed. So, I don't know. People might be just filming their yards all day. I don't know. But yeah, it's worth pointing out on this, because we haven't mentioned it on this podcast, obviously. If you listen to the Apple TV Plus special episode and we're like, wow, some of these shows sound great, I'd like to watch them, you now have an Apple TV app available on all PlayStation consoles and Xbox as well. Like it's on the PS4, it's on PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Because now I can just rent from iTunes on my PS5.
Yeah. In
case something like new comes out that
what's cheaper there. You have the options.
Where it's cheaper.
Sometimes I rent I rent stuff through Google Play because it's like they've got a sale on and I can see the price is cheaper. And sometimes I do Apple.
And then you can
it's nice to just have options.
Yeah, more options is better. And now we've got more options. All right. Yeah, let's start moving into the news. Interesting one. Jason Blum has come out and kind of confirmed that budgets for films have to go up in the wake of the coronavirus. Interview with Inverse while promoting his new body swap slasher film Freaky. Blum was asked how the costs of PPE factor into the budgets of movies in the era of coronavirus. His answer was, may surprise you, it's about 10 to 20% of the production cost. It's an additional 10 to 20%. It ain't cheap. So if you were to, add that to the budget of Freaky, which was $5 million, that means the cost would go up to about $5.5 to $6 million.
Well, more interestingly, have you seen? We saw those photos of how they were filming the latest Jurassic World film, and that film's probably already however many $200 million budget. Well, and let's say that's like 10%, so then it's like another $20 million or more.
Yeah. So this article used the example of Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, the most expensive movie ever made, which cost $379 million to make. If you added another 20%, that would be $454 million.
Jesus
to make.
I believe it though. It makes sense. Like when you think about,
and that's just for the PPE and stuff to keep people safe. That doesn't include the time it's going to take extra to shoot stuff and stay socially distanced at all times. Yeah. So you have to extend shooting budgets and that kind of stuff. So yeah, it all kinds of adds up.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
So yeah, if you're wondering why budgets are likely to go up, and we're probably likely to see less films in the next couple of years, or at least while there's no vaccine that works effectively, this is why. Because filmmaking is more expensive now.
It's certainly interesting. And then,
it is certainly interesting.
It's like, but then it again opens up that whole thing of, well, if places like New Zealand and Australia are become like some safe havens in the world, and obviously they would still have to have precautions if people come to film in either of these places, but
yeah,
it definitely would lower the cost than filming like in America somewhere, or like somewhere else where there's still a higher level of, like, you probably wouldn't have to be, you know what I mean, like the level of PPE and stuff may be slightly lower here filming than it would be elsewhere, you know what I mean? So maybe people would still want to shoot these places, which is good for, I guess, Australia somewhat. I don't know.
Yeah. I believe there's like a few productions. I believe Chris Hemsworth brought another one of his films to be shot in Australia, probably because he just doesn't want to leave Byron Bay, to be honest. Yeah, and a few other projects that come to just shoot in Australia, so it's all good for the local industry and getting people back to work, so that's good. Universal's come into agreement with Cinemark, the third largest cinema franchise in America, not long after their agreement with, I think it was Regal earlier this year. There wasn't much information about that. No, it was at AMC Cinemas earlier in the year, but this one, they go into a little bit more detail as to what the terms of their agreement with the cinema chains is for their production rollouts. So under the new deal provides a 17-day theatrical window for every theatrical release from Universal and Focus Features. And if the movie opens to more than $50 million at domestic box office, the theatrical window gets extended to 31 days. After those windows, Universal will be able to choose whether to take either type of movie to premium video on demand, with Cinemark receiving a percentage of the money made through this revenue stream. So,
other than the 17 days random number, that all seems to make sense.
Yeah. But, well, I guess 17, it would be a day open on a Friday.
That's what I was saying. Like, it's 2 weeks plus the weekend of the opening, I guess.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So then you would have a good estimate as to whether the film is going to be successful or not. Apparently, they're putting aside 10% of all premium video on demand revenue to be set aside for exhibitions. So AMC and Cinemark would get like 15 to 17% of the 10%. So that would be 1 to 2% of the entire. So say you spend $10. No, it's probably going to be like $20 for a premium on demand. Cinemark will take 20 cents out of that.
Yeah.
Which it isn't a bad deal to effectively not do anything. and they still can show this fit cinema. They can still show the films in cinemas if they choose. So, you know,
makes you still have to wonder what it would be like internationally, though. Like, I highly doubt the same deal would hold internationally.
Unlikely, yeah. I guess then that opens up a whole slew of things. Do we see piracy rates go up the roof when people can get these premium on demand versions and rip them at really good quality rather than a guy standing in front of a screen and that kind of thing? But I mean, yeah, it's an interesting move, and whether this is going to be the way forward, even if cinemas come back completely, that we end up seeing premium on demand movies sooner rather than like the 3-4 months before they come to rental services. How do you feel? Do you think this is a good direction?
Because you need the cinema chains and the movie production companies to get along. Like, as much as everyone was yelling and screaming and pointing fingers and being like, "Oh, you're screwing us over, you're screwing us over," like, everyone's in this shit together, and one day when the world comes out of this, everyone needs, like, they're all part of the same working arm of film, so there should not, like, I'm glad to see that some of them are coming to arrangements. Hopefully everyone's able to come to sorts of similar arrangements, and internationally they're able to work out things that make sense and work, because you just need ways because obviously here you and I would be like, okay, we'll put the movies we want to see in the cinema, like, you don't need to put it straight on VOD here or what, you know what I mean? I just hope we get what we want, everyone gets what they want, everyone's happy. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the sooner we get, sooner we are allowed to see everything in cinemas, the better. But obviously, I feel like while that isn't a complete possibility for everybody, this gives an opportunity for people to see films, and gives films that maybe don't do great straight away at the box office like a second chance. Like, some people may be more likely to check something out at $20 staying at home than they would making a trip all the way out to cinema, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Good moves all around, I think. I guess another interesting story about theaters. It sounds like Wonder Woman 1984 is set still to release on Christmas Day, but Warner Brothers might be releasing it on HBO Max either mere weeks after or the exact same day as it gets released in cinemas. I'm sure it's not going to affect any of us here in Australia, because cinemas will be the only place you'll be able to pick it up, but it seems like an interesting push in America, and it seems to indicate this will definitely be coming out at Christmas if they're leaning towards a plan where they just put it on HBO Max.
I'm not going to say anything like that out loud and curse ourselves. So
yeah, there's still a few hours before this needs to go down.
Yeah, like we're still over a month away. Let's not get on our chickens before they hatch with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, there is apparently a scenario in which the studio is considering with an eye on June 4th, 2021 as a potential new release date. So, I mean, it's interesting that they might be throwing it up. I mean, Warner Brothers owning HBO Max opens up the possibilities for them immensely, as the same as Disney with their films, as to what they can do with them going forward. They're not in the same position as, like, we're talking last episode about MGM trying to sell James Bond to a streaming service. HBO, they can just put it on their own streaming service and get, especially for a fledgling streaming service, this would be a big get.
Well, I actually think that HBO Max, especially internationally, it's one of those ones, again, where obviously we know what it is and we know what their plans are, with obviously the big flagship thing upcoming being Zack Snyder's Justice League and all this sort of stuff. But I think for average Joe, like there's too many of these things that keep up with. They probably don't even know it exists or what it's supposed to be, especially in a world where DC and Warner Brothers kept swapping and changing their streaming service plans what seemed like every 6 months. You know, like, oh, this is our streaming service, this is our plan, and oh no, it's now this, it's now that, blah 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 blah. So obviously, if they did stick Wonder Woman on it to some degree, even if it was like 14 days later, it would still be a massive
pull. Yeah.
Pull. Yeah.
All right, this is an interesting one. Apparently, Jeff Nichols, director of Unseen Gems like Midnight Special and Take Shelter, has been tasked with writing and directing a third Quiet Place film based on an idea by John Straczynski, director and co-writer of the previous 2 films. Deadline has a scoop, A Quiet Place 3, or whatever it will be, end up be calling. The third entry in the franchise will have John Straczynski handing things over to Jeff Nichols. That's pretty exciting. Nichols isn't exactly a huge name, but he's one of those filmmakers who makes consistently strong movies. There's no plot detail at the moment, but there's already speculation that this third film could open up the world of the movies up a bit. Rather than continue to focus on Emily Blunt's character and her remaining family, A Quiet Place 3 might branch out and explore other characters inhabiting this world overrun with killer aliens. John Krasinski, who directed the first 2 films and had a hand in the scripts, came up with the idea for A Quiet Place 3, and in the past, the filmmaker hinted that he wanted to take this approach. Back when A Quiet Place Part 2 was being developed, Krasinski said, "I have this very small idea, and what it was is that this is the world you can play in. This isn't just a character to remake or a group of characters or a story. It's actually a world which is a whole different, very unique experience." Does a series of Quiet Place films with different characters strike you as something that people will want? Or did they really just like The Quiet Place for the characters in The Quiet Place? A Quiet Place.
I think all of this kind of depends on how the second film goes, because the first film was very secluded. So you only had the family. You basically just had the family, and then there was a couple of people that showed up in like brief scenes, but that was it. Obviously, the second film has Emily. Spoilers for The Quiet Place, by the way. A Quiet Place, whatever the fuck it's called. The second film, obviously, Krasinski's character is dead, and Emily Blunt and the kids are now traveling outside of their home farm where the entirety of the first film basically took place, and they're going to run into other characters. You got like Cillian Murphy shown in the trailer. They're going to expand the universe. So I feel like I can't really answer the question until I see like what the second film sets up, because the second film could introduce maybe a lot more cool ideas that could be expanded. But I would say, based solely on the first film, I'm not really excited about a extension of the universe, but I am excited to watch the second film. But the idea of a third one at the moment, nah.
I mean, yeah, is it interesting to announce a third film when the second film hasn't been
released not yet? In the year 2020. I mean, they do this shit all the time.
I mean, yeah, that's true. They do plan things way ahead. All right. Apparently there is a new Star Wars series going to be coming to Disney Plus.
Wow.
Yeah. Leslie Headland, the filmmaker behind movies like Bachelorette and Sleeping with Other People, and one of the brains behind Netflix mind-bending series Russian Doll, was announced back in April, is set to write and act as the showrunner of the female-centric Star Wars series on Disney Plus. We've got a little bit more information about it. Apparently, the series is believed to be a female-driven action thriller with martial arts elements set in an alternate timeline from the usual Star Wars universe. Have you been keeping up with this news at all, being the massive Star Wars fan?
There was rumors that it was going to be what's Gina Carano's character? Whatever her character is in the Mando. There was rumors it was going to be her character and Bo-Katan going off on their own adventures. And even if that was true, I'm going to put it out there now. There's only so much Gina Carano can say on Twitter before even Disney kills her off. You know what I'm saying? Like, Disney is quite happy to play Sweden most of the part.
Mandalorian season hasn't finished yet.
Yeah, it's true. But for people who not to go too much into it, but if you want to look up Gina, she's been pulling all the right wing red flags over there quite a lot lately, and a lot of people have kind of had it with her. When she started doing it, it was kind of like it was to the degree that I knew that Disney would let it kind of go, but she just keeps going and going and going. I'm like, at some stage, if there's too many people yelling, "This is bullshit" about her, I just don't see her getting an entire series, even if this was potentially a thing that was going to happen. But I just don't see it now. Like if she got a spin-off show announced, I reckon a lot of people would be like, "Well, fuck that show," because a lot of people are willing to watch the Mando because obviously she's just a small character in it, and they're like, "Okay, well, fuck her," but also whatever, I'll watch it. And just like she's only a side character, one episode probably. If she was the star of an entire series, I don't think that show would do very well based off recent events.
Yeah, but from the sound of it, it's going to be completely separate from anything we've seen so far. In an interview with the Fantastic Frankie podcast, Headland said, "I would say it's in a pocket of the universe and a pocket of the timeline we don't know much about. For me, it's less about going through the Star Wars universe cinematically or artistically. I'm actually kind of combing through it geographically and go on a literal journey. When we were pitching it, I had my designer create that Indiana Jones, like, we go here, then we go here, with a little red dot line like this. This is our journey, this is where we're going." So based on that, and there has been a lot of rumors for a long time, that her series could potentially be about the Star Wars character, Dr. Aphra, who is a big character in the comic books and has a reasonably meaty comic book run. Do you know much about that character?
Dr. Aphra? Yeah, I've read most of the comics. So I like this rumor, but I just refuse to believe it because it just is one of those things where it's just too good to be true. So in case, so here's my like quick pitch on Dr. Aphra. Dr. Aphra was introduced as like basically someone who began working with Darth Vader in the comics, right? And she has two little sidekick droids that are basically the evil versions of C-3PO and R2-D2. And she's like an archaeologist to a degree in the comics, where she's someone who hunts after like dark force stuff or artifacts or like rare stuff that she can steal or try and find for people to sell or whatever. So I think that's where obviously people are drawing the connections to it all. And she is definitely one of the best new characters that have been introduced since Disney reboot, like a Disney era canon character who was introduced in the Darth Vader series of comics and was so popular and so well received that she's now got her own comic series. And not only has she got a comic series, she also got a audiobook original audio drama, which I still haven't listened to because it came out like a month ago, I think. I've got it, haven't listened to it yet. So like she's kind of taken off. So all of that would be great. I would love to see that because she's a fantastic character. But yeah, I'm definitely erring on the side of I just think it's too good to be true.
Yeah, I mean, far more likely it's like a brand new setting and bunch of characters.
Yeah. I don't like it when they always talk about like like the whole idea of it not being connected to the canon or whatever. I'm like, why? Like, there's no need for it not to be connected to the canon. Like,
no, but more like obviously not connected to anything else is probably.
You know, that makes sense. Like, it doesn't need to be connected to the films or whatever. I'm quite happy for that, but I just like build a universe. Not connecting it stuff, but it doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, it's not connected. Well, it is. Like, it's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's the same type of aliens everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about martial arts action? Because obviously all we know of Star Wars is either pistols or lightsabers. Other than Donnie Yen's character in Rogue One, who I think is the only martial arts character.
I always go back to when they announced The Force Awakens and they announced my boys from the raid were going to be in it. And I got so excited with the idea of Star Wars getting more like martial arts inspired fight stuff, which obviously didn't come through because they ended up just playing fucking goons from the Gorvian gang or whatever the hell it is in the Millennium Falcon Han Solo scene. But
They were just alien food.
yeah, basically. But no, obviously Star Wars martial arts makes sense, especially if you look at the prequel era Jedi sword fighting in that. That's obviously a lot more faster paced fighting style when compared to the fights we have in the movies after. So, and they've had, like in Clone Wars and stuff like that, they've had characters have more bigger, intense, like fisticuff type fighting and stuff that's more inspired by obviously martial arts and whatever. It all makes sense given the fact that like Star Wars was literally George Lucas like inspired by several things, including like the World War, samurais, and like martial arts. So go figure.
Yeah, I mean it'd be interesting to see something a bit different, but yeah, look forward to hearing more about that. Let's move over to another massive franchise, Transformers. So it's announced that Stephen Caple Jr., the director of Creed 2, is currently attached to direct a new Transformers film, currently being written by Joby Harold, who wrote King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. So this is no word if it's going to be attached to Bumblebee, the Haley Steinfeld-led film from a couple of years back, but it is being set in a universe separate from the Michael Bay Transformers films.
Yeah.
I don't think Creed 2 is great. Obviously not as good as the first film.
No, they're close.
No, yeah. But, you know, it was fine. I'm sure Stephen Caple Jr. is a solid director. But yeah, I thought this was an interesting, interesting choice.
I don't like the whole idea of this film. This doesn't excite me. But as for his like directing credits or pass, like I don't think Creed 2 is his fault. I think that's I actually think a lot of the problems with that film comes from Stallone going, "Oh, I want back in on the script. I want back in on the writing duties," because he didn't write anything for Creed 1. You know, like
yes,
it was all written by Coogler. So then Creed 2 comes along and
Ryan
Stallone's
Coogler.
Ryan Coogler. And then Creed 2 comes along, and of course Stallone, after everyone loved Creed 1, was like, "Oh, I'm back." And then he
like, "Oh, I'm back."
Yeah, and then he
I'm
fucking
really
co-writes that, and then of course the film focuses a lot more on him and what have you. And of course it brings back an old character from the original series. You can tell it had him all over it. So yeah, I don't blame the film having issues on what's his face, the director.
Yeah. So this is just one of 3 different Transformers films currently in the works. James Vanderbilt is currently working on a Transformers Beast Wars series movie that's apparently set in the future of the original Transformers continuity and follow the clash of Maximals and Predacons, the descendants of the Autobots and Decepticons. Did you ever watch Beast Wars?
Yeah, fuck yeah. Love that shit.
Yeah.
Better than Transformers.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Likely. I don't know how this is set in the same universe as Transformers, because it's like a prequel. I would have thought.
I know. I've looked this up. I've looked this up at one point because it was one of those things I never wondered about when I was a kid. And then there was a certain stage I remember where I'm going to look it up as you fucking continue because I do want to know. Anyway, all I know is
that, or it's like set in like a deserted.
Have you ever gone back and watched it? Oh my god! In my mind, before I went back and watched some, like a year or 2 ago, I looked up some clips. It looks amazing in my head, and then I watched some clips, and I was like, "This looks bad."
That CGI doesn't age very well.
No.
Yeah. I mean,
thanks for a great movie. I'll watch that one. I don't like Transformers movies. They're all pretty shit because Michael Bay and blah blah explosions. But
give me robot monk apes fighting robot dinosaurs. Like
all about that.
Cool robot dinosaurs, not like the Dinocons or whatever they were called in the third.
It's
movie.
Set. Here's your answer, everyone. It's set in the future of the original Transformers franchise, after the events of the Transformers, and features the Maximals and Predacons, descendants of the Autobots and Decepticons, respectively.
Yeah.
So there you go.
What, is the Earth they land on like devoid of all human life? Or?
Fuck, we're getting into the weeds now, aren't we? I don't know.
Because then you never see any humans in that series, I don't think.
No, I don't think there is any.
So, unless they land like in the middle of Africa, which is completely devoid of any desert life or whatever, I don't know. It's an interesting one. But also, Josh Cooley, the director of Toy Story 4, is currently working on an animated Transformers film focusing on Cybertron and the origins of the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. That's also going to be separate to all the rest of the Transformers films. That sounds interesting. But it's interesting that maybe that is going to be a big feature because they've done a bunch of the Netflix series Transformers films recently, I think so. Which kind of follows similar ground. Be interesting to see how much they're influenced by the comic books, which I believe are very popular and very good from what I read.
Well, they keep making them, so I assume that people are buying them.
So clearly, as they're selling, people are buying them and still enjoying them. So yeah, that's your Transformers update. And Michael Bay is not involved in any of these projects, so he's off making other stuff.
So I actually want to watch. I still haven't had time, found time or whatever to fit it in, but I actually do want to watch Bumblebee one day soon because, like, apparently that was fun and it doesn't have Michael Bay directing, fun. So I wouldn't mind watching that because I like John Cena, I like Haley Steinfeld, I like Bumblebee, I guess. I like Transformers, the animated show, but I hated the first two Transformers movies with such a passion. I had a friend at the time that loved them, and I'm pretty sure that's why we're not friends anymore. So,
all right. The Lilo and Stitch live action remake has a director, John M. Chu, director of Crazy Rich Asians, the upcoming In the Heights, and the guy who's been signed on to direct the Willow TV series for Disney Plus has been tapped to direct a live action Lilo and Stitch film. Mike Van Wees, who's wrote the upcoming Crooked Man spin-off of Conjuring 2, wrote the current draft of the script. Interesting choice. But apparently a new writer will be hired to work with Chu on the script. How do you feel about Lilo and Stitch? Does this need a live-action remake? I feel like the answer is no.
The answer is no, but I love the original film, yes.
Yeah, I don't know how you make it as lovable in live action. I don't think it's possible.
I don't know. You cast Emma Stone as the young girl. that's a good pull for a joke. That's a good
joke.
Yeah.
I'll cut in the clip from the Golden Globes where she says, "I'm sorry." Yeah, this doesn't seem like a smart decision unless it's just going to go straight to Disney Plus. Because I don't believe that the original film was a very good financial film,
which
Disney.
I find hilarious.
Although it was just kind of that era of where people were starting to get to CGI films, which I think
because it came out how old was I when it came out?
So it came out 2002.
Yeah, so I was like 10, 11.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So and I loved it. I watched it over and over and over. I think it was probably my top. I reckon it was top 3 Dylan Disney movies.
Yeah.
At that time would have been for sure.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. My name's Stitch.
I'll tell you what. I never noticed this until I read this article, but all the backgrounds are in watercolor. I never.
Oh really?
Noticed that. Yeah.
I haven't watched it in a few years.
So they're not like hand drawn and lined and everything. Yeah. It's just watercolor backgrounds. So that's interesting. Fun fact.
Did you ever watch the animated series?
Yes, I watched a little bit of the animated series.
I think I've watched all of it. Because,
all of it?
Man, my Nana Pop had All Star at the time. So it was on Disney, whatever. So I got them to record it on VHS for me because I'd miss episodes. Love that shit. Got to find it was like 100 and something aliens escape or something like that from of a Stitch like monsters, and then Stitch goes on adventures to capture them. Great stuff.
There's the electric one, right?
Yeah. That was like the main of the one in the show or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, good shit.
All right. Interesting new project by Michael Gondry, the director of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. He's set to tackle an adaptation of Jonathan Lintham's novel As She Climbed Across the Table, which is set up at Amazon Studios and Sharon Entertainment. I'm only bringing this up because it's an interesting premise. Alice Coombs is a particle physicist, and she and her colleagues have created a void, a hole in the universe that they are having to call lack. But lack is a nullity with taste. Taste as it absorbs a pomegranate, light bulbs, and argyle sock. It disdains a bow tie and axe, and a scrambled dog egg. To Alice, this selectively translates as an irresistible personality. To Philip, it makes lack an unbeatable rival, for how can he win Alice back from something that has no flaws because it has no qualities? So pretty much it's a love triangle story between a particle physicist, an ex-boyfriend, and a black hole. So, Michael Gondry is like the perfect director to do this crazy, weird shit. Did you follow anything I just said?
I gotta admit, somewhere about halfway through that, you lost me completely.
Yeah. We'll come back to this when the trailer eventually comes out. But,
I was like, the fuck are you saying?
Listen, the headline, Michael Gondry to direct a love triangle involving a black hole, is very enticing.
Is it literally a black hole?
Yeah. Like a small void or vacuum.
Is that like
black hole?
Supposed to be like a double entendre for life or some shit?
No. Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll find out. And my last story, Conan O'Brien is set to end his TBS talk show, but gets his own weekly HBO Max variety series. So big pull for HBO Max. Seems like talk show hosts with a long history in late night television are the big gets for these streaming services lately. Yeah, interesting. Obviously, 10 years on TBS after he was shafted from The Tonight Show on NBC. I remember that era vividly. I don't know. I was really interested in that story back in the day of him and Conan O'Brien and then Jimmy Fallon all kind of being involved in this tussle for The Tonight Show, which obviously has a long legacy and a big history, and like the promises that were made and the backstabbing and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really interesting part. But obviously Conan went over to TBS, done his show for like 10 years. Really, obviously, on the air, he's currently the longest lasting late night host. He's been doing late night TV for 28 years. So I guess good that he finally taken the time to go back to doing things once a week. One show a week.
Everyone deserves to slow down in their life eventually. So,
yeah, yeah. As this commenter says, old man can't stay up late anymore, but looks forward to his visits once a week. So, congrats, Conan, on getting I'm sure, a very good deal to do one show a week rather than your 4 or 5 shows a week for many years. Yes. He'll still be doing his Conan O'Brien, Conan Without Borders travel series as well.
Like he needs the money,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I believe it was his last year, or in the last year, he like completely revamped his show to cutting it down from an hour to half an hour and just having like the one guest the entire show, and doing a lot more. He does a lot of podcasts and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What's that? How's that any different than Letterman, like quitting and then basically starting a weekly Netflix show?
It's not.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
It's so much easier for this.
Yeah.
Late night is a young person's game.
Yeah.
But yeah. Hopefully he makes more of the Clueless Gamers segments. I enjoyed watching those.
Here's my other question though, for this, like, so to me, like Letterman and even Conan, I put them in like a certain caliber of these late night show TV hosts, and like Jimmy Fallon definitely doesn't fall into the same one, and what's the other one? Late Show, what?
James Corden.
You know what I mean? Like he's obviously not either. So like, I feel like Conan was probably the last one that had like certain ties to that like older school era of type doing late shows. You know what I mean?
I think, like, obviously, I'd say Stephen Colbert and Seth Meyers have I think they're both shows are very political leaning.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, they're more political leaning, which is good, but they're just not the same as, you know what I mean? Like a classic Letterman type show.
Yeah, but I think probably Jimmy Kimmel's the one who kind of fits in the middle. Yeah,
close. Yeah, it's probably closer than Fallon, so yeah, I guess.
Yeah. He doesn't do that, the shtick stuff as much. Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the news for this week. Let's move into what do we end up watching. Dylan, what do we end up watching?
Blue Valentine.
You got any, like, talents?
Like hidden talents?
Can you dance? You can tap dance?
Can you?
No. Here, I'll play a song and you dance. Okay. I can't really sing. I have to sing goofy in order to sing. Like, I have to sing stupid. Okay?
Okay.
You always hurt the ones you love. Or you shouldn't hurt at all. You always stay the sweetest rose and crush it until the petals fall. You always bring the kindest hearts, and with a hasty word you can
You're actually good.
recall.
Yes, the 2010 film directed by Derek Ciafrance. Apologies, I should have really looked up how to pronounce that beforehand. Starring Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams. Cindy and Dean's dysfunctional marriage fails to stand the test of time as they try to raise their young daughter and rekindle their relationship. So when one of the last picks I had was What If? This fun romantic comedy that was really enjoyable and uplifting and that kind of thing. So I figured I'd go the opposite direction and go for this super dramatic, depressing.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, because I've seen this before. So when you picked it, I was like, this does not fit any of Ash's usual MOs, because I know you're a fan of the good old fashioned romantic comedy, or you feel good romantic comedy, and because I'd seen this, I was like, this is not that.
This is kind of the opposite without being a horror film. I mean, it's to a certain degree, it kind of is. So obviously it is a hard watch. I'll just say that right off the bat. That's my opening statement. Obviously, Ryan Gosling, Michelle Williams, really great in this. Playing two people at the end of their relationship, or like struggling to keep their marriage going after several years. But then it's also intercut with going back to the beginning of the relationship and how happy and optimistic they both were to a certain degree. It's interesting reading about the film as well. Certain people thought, especially at the time, that it was more neither person was like the bad guy. But I feel like time has proven that one was probably much worse than the other person. But yeah, really interesting film that I'm glad I watched. I've been meaning to watch this for a long time. I mean, it's constantly coming up on underrated film lists that I look up for the podcast and that kind of stuff. So pretty happy to have finally gotten around to watching this. Obviously a big Ryan Gosling fan. I think he's really good. Michelle Williams, really impressive in this as well. So, Dylan, what do you think revisiting this film after 10 years?
I remember watching it when it came out, because I think I used to listen to a bunch of movie podcasts back then and read a bunch of magazines like Empire, and I'm sure somewhere someone said it was really good, and that's probably why I watched it. But I think it's probably one of Michelle Williams' best performances. It was definitely because I watched this, it was definitely one of those early eye openers for Ryan Gosling for me, as to him not just being your good looking leading man. He can do, this is one of the earlier films I think I saw him in.
He's not just the guy from The Notebook.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is because all the girls in high school loved Ryan Gosling from The Notebook. So to me, he was kind of a meme at one point, and had to open my eyes to him being more than just the poster boy to a degree. Rewatching this, it just made me think about Marriage Story, actually, and how there's actually not that many movies that kind of realistically tell the downfall of romances, because obviously
Which is bizarre, seeing as divorce
more
is
real.
so high nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's always been high, and if it wasn't, it was because people probably should have been getting divorces when they weren't. But I don't know, I always just find it an interesting subject because as much as I can enjoy good romantic stories where people get together and have happily ever afters, it definitely is like an odd thing that cinema is so obsessed. Well, not so. Cinema is so like people don't want to watch movies about people splitting up or not staying together at the end. Like in a lot of ways, I feel like these sort of films are taboo to a degree. It's like, oh, don't do that. Like people don't want to watch that. Like even more than like a horror movie. Like people don't want to watch that. People don't want to watch people not be happy. And I think it definitely comes down to like a psychological thing of people obviously in their minds want to always imagine happily ever after type scenarios for themselves. So if they watch anything that's not that, it's kind of the ultra bring down to the ground, like cut your fairy wings off or whatever. But as to so other than it being fantastically two fantastic performances, I think it's like I think it's a very realistic and real look at a relationship and a couple. I also don't side with either character particularly. I think when it came out, everyone was saying that Michelle Williams' character was like obviously, oh, she's the bitch. Like he was just trying to do this, blah 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 blah. And I guess to a degree, the way the film ends, it sort of like frames it as if he's the one who got dealt the bad side of things or whatever. But like on a rewatch,
with 10 years of culture in between.
Well, with I guess that's a big part of it as well. Like, because obviously I'm watching it, I know where it ends. So you watch the film differently, and you've had like I've had 10 years of life experience and whatever. I just don't think that she was ever actually in love with him. Like,
interesting.
You know, like that's kind of what I got from this take of it, which is that he was there in a moment where she was falling out of love with the other guy. And then, spoilers, by the way, because that's where we are.
Yeah, I was about to say spoilers.
She falls out of love with the other guy, and then like he kind of just falls into her lap as she's got pregnant, and he's able to like commit and
he's willing to commit. Yeah,
he's willing to commit and to love her and like be the father and all these sorts of things. But even saying that, I still don't see that as like her being the bad guy, because like I could say, because you can say like she wasn't actually ever really in love with him, but she may not have even known that herself. Like that's the weird thing about like it's very easy to look at something and be like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Like he was the right person for a time or whatever. I don't know. Like I always find it hard to try and pick bad guys in these love story things where you don't have to. Like everyone always wants to pick a bad guy when there doesn't always have to be a bad guy. You know what I mean? Like it's a shitty scenario. You don't know where the movie goes after. You hope that they would come to an amicable situation where he could still continue being a figure in the child's life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of a happy, like that's, see, I never took Marriage Stories ending as sad is the other thing.
No.
Like I consider Marriage Stories.
It's a happy ending.
Yeah, I think Marriage Story actually has a happy ending. And a lot of people are saying it was so devastating and whatever. I'm like, Marriage Story has a happier ending than this film if you want to compare them. Because Marriage Story gives you enough to know that the relationship's going to continue with like they're going to be in each other's lives to the degree of the child and so on and so forth. Like
get better along that kind of stuff.
Like that Marriage Story actually has a quite happy ending. This ending is a lot more.
I think people think because of that last letter scene that if he had have heard that at the start of the film, things might have been different.
I don't think. Yeah, that's people just once again pulling too many like fairy tale love story things into the thing. But yeah, this film's ending is I guess a lot more left open than that. So you can only hope that it turned out similar.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you said about him settling, because obviously Dean has that quote at the start of the film, or during one of the flashbacks, where he says that men are more... I've got it here. Feel men are more romantic than women. When we get married, we've married like one girl, because we're resistant the whole way until we meet one girl. We think, I'd be an idiot if I didn't marry this girl. She's so great. But it seems like girls get to a place where they kind of pick the best option or something. I know girls that get married, they're like, oh, he's got a good job. They spend their whole life looking for Prince Charming, and then they marry the guy who's got a good job and is going to stick around. It's kind of what ends up happening.
Like, it just explains the whole movie.
And like so many other, like her parents and everybody else, that's not enough, to sustain a marriage, apparently.
Yeah.
The other interesting fact I read looking this up is a lot of this was improvised. That a lot of the scenes and the fights and that kind of stuff was improvised on the day. Apparently, director Derek would tell each of them their directions going in without telling the other actor. For Williams, he would tell her to instruct her to try to leave the room, use any way to break out of the argument with Gosling. For Gosling, he would tell him to use any means to persuade to get Williams' attention. So I thought that was an interesting read, and you can definitely... It may be that why there's so much authenticity and honesty to the performance, that they're real. Even that scene on the bridge where he climbs over the fence, apparently that wasn't scripted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently he got told to try and get Michelle Williams to tell him she was pregnant. So I can't imagine that went down well behind the scenes, like behind the camera.
Lawyers are like, what the fuck?
Because he full on goes over the fence.
I was wondering when I was watching it.
They're likely no net.
Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, is that CGI? It's like, what's the...
I mean, it could be, but I don't think so. Really good film. Hard to watch. Brilliant follow-up to The Road from last episode.
This is better than The Road. There's my hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take, but...
I mean, yeah. I think the flashbacks are more devastating. I think the flashbacks are so positive, it makes the present stuff more devastating. I feel like the editing in this film is really good, because also they dole out the information about their past really well, because obviously she meets the father of her daughter in the bottle shop at the start of the film.
Yeah, and you're like, who the hell's that?
Midway in the film.
Yeah.
Who the guy, and obviously they have that argument about in the car on the way to the sex hotel.
And his comment of, have you been faithful, makes more sense in retrospect.
And then why he would care about this random guy is another thing, So that brings us to the end of this episode of What Do You Want to Watch? If you want to find us on Twitter to talk about anything in this episode, you can go to explosionnetwork.com/Twitter, or just go to explosion.com, where you can find our news, reviews, podcasts, everything, including our brand new podcast, All New Marvelcast, which we talk about Marvel movies, the MCU. We're currently doing a full Marvel MCU rewatch. So the first 2 episodes of the Marvel rewatch are currently up: Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, as well as a introductional episode. So that's 3 episodes of movie-related podcasts that you can listen to right now. So look for All New Marvelcast on all your podcast feeds, or in the show notes down below. So if you want to help us out with this show, leave us a review either on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser, or tell people on Twitter about the show. Just tell a friend. Tell a friend that Blue Valentine is more depressing than The Road, or is a better movie than The Road. That's information that needs to get out there.
They're like, I don't want to watch either of these films, but thanks for telling me.
All right. Well, until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess. Dylan, please.
Hey!